Right, so you're going to have to bear with me a bit because I've not done this before, but I'm going to try and go through my planning ideas with you as if I was talking to you and doing it on the board, so you can see my thinking behind it, and hopefully this will help you. So this is a different way of planning to potentially what you've done before, but it's still thinking about the same things. So in the middle is the task. This is what we've been asked to do. So we are going to be describing Coraline's house. We are going to be carrying on the story. In the next box around the outside, we're thinking about what we're going to do. So the purpose of it, why we're writing. And then in the next one, we're going to be thinking about techniques we can use to achieve this. And then in the last one, we're going to just be starting to write all our ideas down. So none of the work you're doing today is going to be full sentences or full paragraphs. It's just thinking about your ideas ready for next week. Okay, so we don't need to do anything with that middle box. That's just our task. So what we need to do in around the outside in the next box is thinking about what we're doing or why we're doing it. Okay, and we're doing it to continue that sinister mood or tone, aren't we, that has been created in the first three chapters. So that's one thing that we're going to be carrying on. The other thing that we might want to do is we might want to think about Coraline's emotions. Okay, that we might want to show how she's feeling and show how she's reacting. Okay, the other thing we might want to do, or the other thing that we need to do, our purpose, is to do write a clear description. Okay, of the setting, and we've been given the setting here, haven't we? So clear description of the setting. Just going to move back so you can see. Clear description of the setting, and help the reader to imagine clearly. I'm repeating clearly because that's really important. The description. Okay, so that's why we're doing this, or what we're going to be doing. The next thing is looking at techniques and thinking about how we might achieve some of these things. So if we're thinking about a sinister mood or tone, then some ways that we can create a sinister mood or tone might be to create darkness within the setting. Okay, and we'll come on to that in a minute. So I might want to create darkness within the setting. I might, another technique that's good at creating sinister mood or tone is a cliffhanger, isn't it? Okay, when you leave the reader on the edge of something, wanting to find out more. And that links in, my chair's really creaky, sorry. That might mix in with mystery. And from that, another technique that we might use from that is questions. Okay, and then you can easily, as we saw in the starter, change the mood of something based on the vocabulary that you use. So we'll come on to that in a minute as well. And then just the general descriptive techniques, things like similes, things like adjectives. Okay, what else can create a sinister mood or tone, or suspense and tension? Maybe short sentences. Because they help create pace, don't they, and speed up the story. So there, if you just look there, I've given you lots of different techniques that you might want to include in your story. And then we're going to use those for the next part of the planning in a second. Okay, and that is linked to this sinister mood and tone. So that's how we're going to create this. What we can move on to thinking about now is Coraline's emotions and how we can show her reacting to the environment. Okay, sorry, that should say reactions, it doesn't matter. So we can do that. The most obvious way is through use of emotive language, isn't it? And again, we'll come up with some vocabulary that links to that in a minute. What else can we do? We can think about the choice of verbs that we use. So again, looking back at the starter, words like walked don't hint at much really, do they? Whereas things like crept or hurried show more about the emotion of the character and how they're reacting to something. And that links in as well to adverbs, doesn't it? So your ly words, so thinking hurriedly, timidly, worriedly, cautiously. So all of those again hint at emotions and reactions. And then another way of showing emotion or reacting might be that you want to include descriptions of body language and facial expressions. So again, if you were filming this, that would be your main source of showing how she was feeling. Just because you're writing something doesn't mean you can't include those, right? A lot of film ideas and writing cross over a lot, don't they? Okay, and again, we'll come up with some vocabulary for those as well. So we have got lots again of different ideas of how to show Coraline's emotion. So we've got lots of ideas for this, lots of ideas for this. Now we're going to move on to thinking about how to create a clear description of the setting. Now, clear description and clarity falls into the category of thinking about paragraphs. It's got to be in clear, well-structured paragraphs. Okay, and again, the same thing with sentence structures. That if you're writing the continuation of the story, then you need to make sure that it is in clear sentences. Okay, now you might want to range your sentences. You might want to use short sentences, as we mentioned earlier. You might want to use complex sentences. And it's worth looking back at the chapters that we've read so far to see the way that the author has structured some of his sentences. And you might want to copy that style. I'll just move this a bit so you can see. What else can you use? Again, description. You need to make sure that you're using adjectives, don't you? So we've got adjectives are very important. You also need to think about not just what you see, but to give a whole perspective, you need to think about use of senses, don't you? Yeah, so see, hear, maybe smell, taste and feel, and that links to Coraline anyway, doesn't it? Okay, so we're getting kind of an overview here of lots of different things. So we've got lots of ideas of what we can include to make sure that we are hitting those boxes for clear description. It's important for the reader to imagine it clearly, and also think about your target audience. This is written for children aged between I'd say 9 and 14. So that is your target audience. So obviously you are continuing the tone that has already been set by Neil Gaiman in your story. And then what you're going to do around the outside is think about some vocabulary that you might use in your story that might help you. So if you work your way around your ideas, you can think of what vocabulary comes from that. So for example, darkness within a setting, I might have shadows is a good word to use. I might have looming, means like leaning over or being threatening or intimidating, which again are good words, aren't they? Let's have those here. So threatening, can't spell threatening, intimidating. Okay, what else could we have? For a cliffhanger, you might have the word suddenly. Yeah. What else could you have? They might hear something. So a mysterious sound. Okay. Questions that she might ask. So what is this place? How do I escape? Okay, that kind of idea. And then vocabulary, again, you want quite sinister vocabulary, don't you? So it might be, we might want to use some of the words from the vocabulary task the other day. So we had horizon, didn't we? What other words did we have? I'm trying to think. Writhed. So she might writhe in fear, maybe. Twisted might be a good word to describe some of the setting. Hidden is another good word. So you're just building up almost like a vocabulary wall, aren't you? Just around your initial ideas. So if we look down here, emotive language, she might be concerned. She might still be quite curious because she has been quite adventurous, hasn't she? So curiously, if you want an adverb. Adventurous. But then you might have fearful, maybe. Fearful or fearfully. Worry. Shock. Uneasy. She might be uneasy, feel uneasy. And then if you're thinking about your adverbs, if I just move this up a bit, I'll move it back down in a minute. So an adverb here, you might have cautiously, because again, they're the ly words, aren't they? Cautiously, let's have crept into, or I've started writing a sentence here, into the unknown. That might be a good opening sentence, actually, if you wanted to use that. If you just put Coraline at the start of it. So you might want to start with that kind of sentence. And again, lots of mystery in there, hinting at how she might be feeling, focusing on the main character still, all right, and setting us up into moving into the outside description. All right, so can you see how planning like this really helps you, actually, because that gave us that initial idea. So thinking about body language and facial expressions, you might have fear, rushed, down her spine. So that's quite a contrast, actually, isn't it, to her emotions there. The speed of that emotion is a contrast to her cautiously creeping. So can you see, again, we're building up these ideas of what we can use within our own story. And then senses, maybe, thinking about good sentence starters. So the smell of, the sound of, she saw. All right, just to give you some ideas. What else could we have? If we look up here just about the image, so what you might see, we've got the house itself, haven't we? So the house, we've got the sky, words like velvety might be a good one. You might want, the house looks quite pink on the picture if you're using the picture to help you. So velvety and also maybe purple. You could have something unusual about it, even though it is the same house, there might be differences in it. Oh, the sky was ablaze, that's a good word. Might want to use that. What else could there be? The garden, the well, maybe trees rustling in the distance. Okay. You might want a short sentence. You could have she hesitated. Again, really short sentence, isn't it? Only 2 words, but raises lots of questions. Why has she hesitated? Has she seen something? How is she feeling? What's there? So again, that gives you lots of starting points that you could use. Okay, so hopefully, if you just have a look at this, I will take a photo of it and I will put it onto the PowerPoint so that you can see it really clearly. You can see, hopefully, the process that I've gone through when I'm planning. So I've got the idea first, then I've thought about why I'm doing it and what I want to achieve. Then I've thought about how I can do that, what techniques I can use, and then I've come up with my own ideas around the outside of some of the words and language that that I want to include in my story. So I don't mind you copying a lot of this, that's fine. As you get further into the outside boxes, that's where I want you to come up with your own ideas a bit more. So if you keep this one and keep this one pretty much as they are, then try your hardest to try and think of what you could add into the techniques. You might have better techniques, you might have more interesting techniques, you might know something that works really well, and then this bit I want to be your own ideas as much as possible, please, so that I'm reading lots of different stories eventually, rather than the same story 60 times with the same vocabulary. So try your best to develop your own vocabulary from this, okay? If you are struggling and you want to use as much of this plan as you can, then that is fine. I don't mind. Obviously, we're not in school, are we? So it's a lot more difficult for you, I know, to share ideas with people and come up with your own ideas. So I'm trying to give you as much help as I can. The other important thing is you are not writing your paragraphs today, you're not writing your sentences today. I want the rest of your time in your lesson spent doing this, okay? So you did a quick starter and then we're working on this for the rest of the lesson, okay? It might help you to do it on A3 paper. If you have got A3 paper, I will put a printout of it onto the computer as well, a blank one, so that if you have got a printer and you want to print it out or type it or however you want to do it, then that's fine. But what I want you to do is think about how the words gradually evolve and how the work gradually evolves, rather than just doing a big spider diagram of everything in one go, okay? Hopefully that's a bit clearer for you. If you are still struggling or you're worried about anything, then just send me an email and I'll try and help you and go through it as much as I can. Okay? Well done, you lot.